schools, announced by the employer on Tuesday, saying some of them were punitive and unreasonable, because on Tuesday the TSC gave 10 different changes with regard to running of institutions of learning. Things to do with sharing head teachers for schools with common compounds, teachers, school principals requiring master's degrees, school head teachers requiring university degrees, teachers not serving in their regions of origin, they're calling it delocalization, that if you come from Nairobi, you're sent to serve elsewhere. Now that has been opposed by the teachers union. Something else, a different headline on page 2 of the Daily Nation that is also being opposed. Another announcement that was made on that Monday. Union traders lobby oppose rule on books. The Kenya National Union of Teachers and the Kenya Booksellers and Stationers Association have opposed the move by the government to directly supply textbooks to schools next year. Now, it appears everything that that was it's not really a proposal by the CS. The CS just said, this is how it is, this is how it's going to happen, this is the book and this is how we're going to do it, this is how we're going to run the institutions. Now NUTS and publishers are coming out and saying no. Let's start again with you, Janet. You are an expert on education matters. Some of these pronouncements, how far-reaching changes, and probably why the reason why teachers are reluctant to actually embrace them so readily.
Let's begin from here. That the headline is wrong. It is not teachers. The statement is from the Secretary General of KNUT.
Who represents teachers?
Yes, he does, but we have not seen a consultation process with the teachers to say that really this is the teachers' positions, because I think that has been a problem, in the past, and we've been in this country where critical and key reforms in the sector have been opposed by individuals, and when you go to the ground, some teachers really identify with the reforms. Let's start with the book.
Even as you say that, the primary schools head teachers are currently meeting in Mombasa for their conference. They've also spoken on some of these issues, and they've opposed. They've voiced their opposition to some of these issues. So it is not just the union. Even individual teachers have come out and said, no, we're not going to do
individual
that.
Teachers, it is good, but I think what I'm saying is that we would want to also be realistic and also involve everybody, so that when a voice is voiced, we are clear that this is what they are saying, and these are some of the reasons that they are putting on the table to oppose some of the changes that we have seen. Let us start from a background. For example, we are talking about books. I am sure teachers of this country are more interested than anybody else in having children have books, because that is what we are pursuing. That there is no money in their accounts and there are no books in schools, yet money has been disbursed somewhere in here. And also, let's say that the only stakeholders here are not the unions, for example. We have the parents, we have got the learners, we have the government that is the key funder. So what is their voice? And all of us, what are we driving at? If for sure we do not have books in school and we do not have money in the banks, then there's a discussion we need to have, because ultimately books must be with the children or the money in the bank having not been spent. I think that is the framework. And now, this is not the first time we are seeing push and pull. It will be remembered in this country that we have had a discussion about school fees hitting 100,000, and we had similar voices saying no, you cannot reduce school fees. And we asked, where are you coming from? What is the role of the union? Where does your discussion begin and where does it end? Because we have to draw boundaries. Unless we want all our voices to be submerged, because a discussion, especially on the payment of fees, it involves the government, it involves the parents, it involves the children. This is because we really have to be very clear.
Is that the union speaks for the teachers, Sandra. And,
and this is what I am asking. And
this is a member of parliament.
The question I am raising are about conflict of interest. You cannot be the policy maker and implementer at the same time, because then you will make a policy that only suits you
Okay.
What are we saying? We are saying we've got a policy, let us consult. But you do not consult on a framework that you must agree on everything that you put on the table. That is not consultation, that is bullying.
The union was consulted, but it's only that they disagreed.
I'm sure, when we were, and when the Form 1 selection process was being launched, because I was present, as you rightly put it, and when the CS was making the announcement to the teachers, I would want somebody to play the clip. The heads of secondary schools were clapping.
Okay.
They were clapping,
and it should
embracing the challenges.
It should be noted that even the CS, Fred Matiang'i, noted that now that Janet Oko is on the other side, meaning on the side of government implementing government policy, that even her attitude towards some of these things changes.
I've been in civil society, and this has been my voice, and you can play my clips. I have been a supporter of the child because the children do not have such platforms.
Now,
for example,
now you have a different understanding of how government runs, and that changes how you approach this.
No, it doesn't. We only remain logical, and we only remain committed in doing the right thing. Let us not involve politics where it is not required. Let us ask ourselves, what is the right thing to do?
Sandra, do you think that Fred Matiang'i, the CS, and his style of leadership probably is wanting to some extent that probably not enough people, his style was not as consultative as it should have been?
Change is painful, and especially change that is likely to disadvantage particular groups and particular individuals. And I think the kind of leadership that you require within particular sectors that over the years have been deteriorated, over the years have suffered a number of managerial and operational challenges, perhaps his kind of leadership is what is needed, where you're saying this, I am well aware of what is required, I have the capacity to do it, and I'm making a conscious decision to go about it in one particular manner. So I agree that it's been a rough patch, the starting years when from the time you got to office. It's been a rough patch as far as implementing certain reforms were there. I remember the time when there were so many complaints that he shouldn't be going to schools when he was doing the raid. The raids, I don't call them raids, but impromptu. When he was doing the impromptu visit, and there was a lot of complaints that he's overstepping his mandate and whatnot. Then through that we realized that a number of cartels had been broken, and I think that is what my colleague was speaking about without mentioning that word, cartels, that ideally are damaging the system of education in this country, in terms of books, in terms of school fees, in terms of taking advantage of children with school holidays, and those are some of the things that have been streamlined. So it's going to take a while, and of course these are going to be teething problems, but as we move forward, I think it is important, again, systems and structures within our institutions, so that we are not always talking about an individual, but we are talking about an institution that has systems and structures regardless of who is sitting at the top of it.
Givaka, of course, teachers cannot be ignored in this process. We are talking about a situation where we're looking at them to implement free secondary education, to take on the new curriculum. The minister, the CS for Education, cannot ignore teachers. So when they voice their concerns and say, we as teachers are not comfortable with this, he cannot ignore them, can he?
No, he can't ignore them. And the thing is good that they're listened to, so that their concerns are factored in when the policy is being implemented. What worries me, friend, is the knee-jerk reaction. I would like to know what is it that the Secretary General of NAT is proposing as an alternative. Is he suggesting that it should be business as usual as far as the supply of books is concerned? Is he suggesting that we should not aspire to have our head teachers to be graduates? Is that what he's telling us? So it's important, I think, even as we engage, and I pray and hope that basically what we are reading in the press does not represent what his intentions were, because I'd be very comfortable to hear that basically the head teacher of the school my kid is going to is a graduate.
For example, we do have that clip by Wilson Sossion. We'd like to listen to exactly what he said. It is not his entire speech, but just a bit of it. If my director could help me with that right now. The bite by Wilson Sossion in Mombasa. Okay, we'll get that in a short while.
Yeah, so that would be my concern, because you see, the status quo as it is now, when you look at the education sector as a whole, there are areas that are glaringly in need of reform. And one of them is actually the supply of books. It's a huge challenge. I remember when I went to school, every beginning of the term, there will be a truck from the Minister of Education that will deliver every textbook and the stationery, including pencils and geometrical sets, them days. And it worked. And you go to the staff room, and once you have paid your school fee, then the parents were not required to actually buy any other books. But remember, the publishing industry is an industry, it's a business like any other business. So even as we talk about the issue of supply, that the publishers would like to still continue, we must be able to ask ourselves, hey, who's benefiting?
Are you saying Sossion was speaking for the publishers more, not necessarily for teachers? But let's listen to what he had to say.
Yeah.
In Mombasa County, Kenya National Union of Teachers, NAT, has rejected new regulations announced by the employer Teacher Service Commission yesterday. NAT Secretary General Wilson Sossion said the new policies, which requires primary school head teachers and their deputies to be holders of a degree certificate, was punitive. Under the new policy, which is to take effect immediately, secondary school head teachers and their deputies are required to be master's degree holders. The policy also stipulates that school heads won't serve in their home counties. Speaking at the ongoing head teachers conference, Sossion said the new rules were not relevant as students would better relate with teachers from their localities than those drawn from other counties.
All protocols of anything that we have not negotiated, and I'm saying in broad daylight, we shall reject through organized action, whether by organizing you or using the judicial system. Principle of teaching all over the world is that a teacher teaches closer to the community. That's the principle of teaching. So this concept of delocalization is more political, and it requires more discussion between us and TSC.
Yes, that's also Sossion.
So what I'm saying is that I think it's important for us to be honest with ourselves. We talk about our children really, and these gentlemen who are sitting there, they've gone through the school system. And I'm sure they are beneficiaries of the system they are trying to oppose. Why are they denying our children the benefit of that system that worked then? Of course, we can tweak to tinker with it here and there so to make sure it is there. Some things are factual. Barack Obama said, we have the luxury to interpret facts, but we don't have any luxury to have our own facts.
Okay. David, what do you say to this?
No, I couldn't put it better than my colleagues have. When you fight corruption, corruption fights back. What's happening in the education sector is fighting corruption. You have the government, CS, saying that henceforth the government will procure the books and disburse them to schools. Why? Because the principals used to be given the money for procuring the books and would end up buying either half or none at all. Okay? So the person who ends up losing in this is the student. Now, Sossion should have been the first to embrace that and say, if that be it, then I, as a representative of teachers and as a parent, and by extension of his job, he ought to be eventually a representative of the children as well, our pupils. He should have been the first to support it and say, hey, that makes sense. So long as we don't also get to realize that the education ministry itself, the government, has formed another cartel to ensure that only one publishing house or exam will also possible, which is very possible. This is the government we have been in. Our principles are a reflection of ourselves. It's our society. They have seen that a cabinet secretary can loot cash and end up being a governor. So why don't we loot the little when the person loots the big? Now, when you look at the changes, I saw Nancy Macharia, the TSC chair, say very clearly that we will have these changes staggered. There will not be, particularly the academic qualifications, the localization, the 9-year term for principals, which I think are very good things. Because some of these principals have formed cartels. They have been there for 12 years. They have structures that cannot be disrupted. And you move them and disrupt.
As David is speaking, everyone is nodding.
I'm just reminded that today, everyone and every Kenyan is happy about how NEC manages exams. We have all forgotten that for us to get here, 106 secondary schools
were burnt. Yeah.
They went up in flames. Who?
To try and threaten.
Who did that? Yeah. And it turned out, the thing was, we are going to cause all this havoc, and then, you know, we run up and down, and we tell the president, Matiang'i is not competent enough, he's not consulting, he's not doing this, so get him out so that school stops, you know, stop to, so I think for us, and parents.
And let's discuss that now, because our time is almost up, but that is a very key discussion that we need to have as well. Yeah. This person, CS Fred Matiang'i, and his position as in charge of that docket of education right now, he is doubling up as in charge of interior as well. The discussions to do with the cabinet list are coming up this December, probably even this week, because the president and his deputy are already working on that. Issues to do with free secondary education, new curriculum. We've seen the reforms is made in the examinations system. If Dr. Fred Matiang'i was to be moved to a different docket within government, does it mean that we run the risk of losing all these changes that we're now seeing? Dr. Githaka.
Friend, I think this is the difficulty when we personalize reforms and institutions. I'm persuaded that...
But we are there. You must agree that before CS Matiang'i came, we were not able to effect all these changes.
Yes, and this is, I think it's a learning lesson for us. We must give it to Dr. Matiang'i. He is a very highly driven man and very passionate about it, and very visible. You know, his management style is such that basically he rallies people around him. He has this overbearing persona, which sometimes is very helpful when you're actually trying to bring in radical transformation. You'll be surprised, by the way, the most developed countries, the one we always praise when we come to these shows, Asian countries, there's no democracy there. In fact, one of the distinguishing features when we look at Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Taiwan, is they're very autocratic. Yet we come and celebrate them. So sometime, at a certain point in time, you'll need those kind of leadership. But you know, you cannot sustain it forever. You know, there's always you go in phases. So I'm persuaded that even if Dr. Matiang'i was to move from this ministry, all will not be lost. Right? I think the question is it too early?
That something will be lost.
His persona will be lost invariably. I mean, because he's very persuaded, very driven. He's a gentleman who will be in school at 6 o'clock, and the headmaster is milking his cows, because you know they will come from the neighborhood, and you basically be able to spot like that. And I think that is good. But you know, it is not something you can sustain going forward. So even if he was to move, and I'm sure the president is not in short supply in terms of people who can go to that ministry, even if he was to move to another docket, I think what he has done, because he's already basically created a benchmark. So whoever comes in cannot ignore what Dr. Matiang'i did.
For Uhuru Kenyatta, it's his second term as president. Of course, he appears keen on having education as part of his legacy. He would really benefit in having Dr. Fred Matiang'i run that ministry for the next 5 years, don't you think?
And I don't think it's the president only. I think for all of us and for those whose children are within our education system are really proud of what has taken place, and are really hopeful that the kind of changes that we have seen are things that are going to continue. And I do agree with him that we are at a process where we are still unable to delink the individual from the processes and the structures that are there, but we will get there. I remember a time when people are really celebrating Matiang'i, where someone posted and said, we've gotten to a point, we've been having such bad service that we've gotten to a point when someone is doing his job or her job, we are celebrating. It's like as though it's something new, and yet that is what is expected of an individual who's holding public office. So again, for me, I'm a strong believer, and I have a very big vision in terms of building strong institutions, so that even without the person who's brought these changes, whoever will be coming in next will be changed by the institution as opposed to him changing the institution.
Okay, David?
I am well, Matiang'i has done very well. Now, I have always said that a leader is as great as his successor. So that when you're out of the scene and your successor fails, it means the leadership was all about you. We had a wonderful man in John Michuki. Michuki did radical things in the transport sector, but when he left, the transformations left with him. He went to environment where I think now he left a few structures that have been useful for the likes of Judy Wahungu to benefit from. Dr. Matiang'i has tried so much in the education sector, and I think there's something called institutional memory that's needed. Continuity is a very good thing. So the president may be interested in keeping him there, but I would, for example, give him a new challenge, and then by giving him a new challenge, be able to test whether the transformations he brought have been institutionalized or they are entirely about him. So, for example, move him to our ailing health sector or another department. Of course, he has done not so well in interior. I would give him even see if we can have transformation in the transport sector.
Back to the transport
which
sector.
has been a menace.
Okay.
I'd give him a new challenge.
Okay.
You have seen his talent.
So you're not keen on seeing him remain at the education ministry?
No. It would be okay. But if I were the president, I would give him a different. I would give him a different challenge. Because that helps us to test whether that's been institutionalized. But please don't take him to interior, because it just points to good finally. He's my friend, and that's the truth.
I think Dr. Matiang'i has done several things, so many of them. But the two most important things that I can assure you now, anybody else that come to the education ministry will be changed by the ministry. Because even Kenyans now, the bar was too low, but now it is high up there. So you're not just about to come and just be some lousy person without, doing the reforms because the public already is aware of what they want. And two, it has given us a new criteria. And I like the discussions going on social media. We have other talented people like Dr. Matiang'i. He was not a known person, like the traditional names that we know. But this criteria is such that they're looking at every other nominee against what Dr. Matiang'i has done, which for us is a good thing. And if you don't call that institutionalization, I don't know really what to call it. But I think even in terms of inspiring people, like, look at Nancy Macharia now. Look at the things that she has been able to do. I think she has been inspired by somebody to own the reforms, because all along we have beautiful documents, the policies, but they've been sitting down because the environment for doing them. When you try to do something, then there's all this.
If you are the president,
yes,
would you keep him there, or
I would keep Matiang'i in education, because we need to finish this thing.
And that comes from an education expert. The president could be listening. Of course he's listening. He's always talking about analysts on the panel. Well, that's where we wrap up our news review this morning. Thank you so much, Sandra Ochola, lawyer, Janet Oko, County Executive for Education Nairobi, John Givaka, governance expert, and David Osiani, public policy expert. Quite a number of other headlines we've not been able to look at because of time. On the back page of the Daily Nation, MPs deny that they are greedy in parliamentary rules changes. They're saying that because now they're saying they need to be serving in at least 2 committees of parliament just to earn more money. Presidency on the spot, over 290 million shillings. Interesting, on the back page of the Daily Nation. Harambee House expenditure shielded from scrutiny. That's on page 10 of the Standard. Of course, the big one, US rejects Raila plot but backs call for dialogue. And on page 8 of the Daily Nation, law on 1/3 gender rule hangs in the balance. I wish we would have had time to discuss that, but unfortunately we have to leave. Chef Ali Mangri is cooking up breakfast today, so do not go anywhere, and he has a surprise guest. Who is that? You have to wait and see. Plus, I'm informed that the blue Subaru has just driven in. Joey Muvengi will be talking to that gentleman who has an apartment in South B, if you know what I'm talking about.